A powerful winter storm is pummeling parts of the eastern US after sweeping through the Midwest. Some areas have seen their heaviest snowfall in decades. The storm has been blamed for at least 3 deaths. Hundreds of thousands are without power.
The United States is being pummeled by a massive winter storm system. Ice and snow put a deep freeze on this highway in Ohio as traffic ground to a standstill for 7 hours. In Kansas City, elbow grease was the only way these stranded motorists could get back on the road as the snow continued to pile up, forcing the governor to send out the National Guard in some regions. Further south, the snowfall caused travel chaos for states not used to heavy snow, like here in Louisville, Kentucky's airport. Across the U.S., over 2,000 flights were canceled and 20,000 more delayed. And some locals have already lost patience with the near-record snowfall.
Oh, couldn't be worse.
And with more snow on the way, it's already back to the shovel.
I got to work tomorrow, so I'm making sure I get there.
Even the nation's capital wasn't spared from the Arctic blast, much to the delight of this former Olympian biathlete.
Yeah, we're so happy to be here, and we're so grateful that we have this beautiful public space that we can enjoy in all weather, especially this one.
The winter storm advisories remain in effect for many parts of the U.S. until Tuesday.
Matthew Cappucci is a meteorologist and an atmospheric journalist and joins us from a very cold Washington, D.C. Good to see you, Matthew. The storm has delivered on its promises that we got yesterday from you, Matthew. How much more has it got to give at this point?
Well, right now, I'd say like 90% of the storm is done. The entire system is kind of working off the eastern seaboard right now into the Atlantic Ocean. So it's almost entirely over, but not quite yet. Part of the reason being it has that cold air wraparound, the cold air backlash on the backside, which is pushing through West Virginia into the Virginia region, and eventually Washington, D.C. These next few hours, we'll see kind of cold air, temperatures dropping, and of course, a little bit of additional snow, 3 to 7 centimeters, which doesn't really sound like much, but it's a little bit more that we frankly just don't need on top of what we already have.
Yeah, you've seen some people using the snow to go skiing a minute ago through Washington, D.C. Are people adjusting their travel plans and just keeping on moving forward, Matthew, or has this storm really put the brakes on where you are in the capital?
A bit of both. I think this was a really well-anticipated winter storm, so a lot of folks ahead of time were reaching up to me saying, hey, what do we do? Should we change our travel plans? That said, roughly 90% of flights at Reagan National Airport, the main airport in D.C., were canceled. And I think as a result of that, so many folks have been kind of scrambling to change their plans. I think these next 24 hours will be really rough for people in the city. Not only do they have roadways that are really tough, but all the planes that should have been at Reagan National are sort of not in the city. They're down in Charlotte, they're up farther north in Boston. Those will have to take time to kind of get back into the city so that we can have flights out of the city. So it'll be a little while for folks to sort of catch up here, at least in the aviation sector. But that said, once in a while, the city needs to kind of slow down. And I think this was one of those times. Given how cold the air is, we won't really see any melting anytime soon. And until we get really late into tomorrow, into early Wednesday, we won't really see much improvement.
You've described well these cities that have got the experience, like Washington, of these winter storms where they're pretty common. What about other places that don't perhaps get these extremes? How are they coping?
Kansas City saw their fourth greatest snowfall, single-day snowfall on record, 11 inches, which is roughly about 26, 27 centimeters. And they have records dating back to 1904. This entire system tracked about 2,200 kilometers across the entire country, and we saw some really impressive totals with it. So in addition to Kansas, Missouri, Ohio saw some really bad totals. And it wasn't really just the snow, it was the freezing rain that came down too. Upwards of a centimeter and a half of ice accretion, knocking out power to so many people. As of earlier this afternoon, roughly 300,000 Americans were without power. And it'll take a while to get the lights back on for them because, the freezing rain took the lines down, there's no warm-up anytime soon. The other thing that I think is really worth mentioning is that in about 3-ish days, we'll have another significant winter storm coming in from Texas all the way to the mid-Atlantic coastline and eventually New England. We'll see upwards of probably 10, 15 centimeters worth of snow in Texas, and that's a really big deal for them. They're down in the southern U.S. They don't see snow that often. To get a plowable snowfall is one thing. To get a plowable snowfall and then ice and freezing rain too is another. And that's kind of what it's looking like right now. So Texas could see a really bad storm, and we're kind of waiting to see how bad it is at this point.
Yeah, more on the way. Matthew Cappucci in Washington, D.C. Thanks so much.
Thank you.